Caregiving can sometimes feel like an impossible struggle. Caregivers may be torn between taking care of loved ones and trying to maintain balance in life. The good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. The Caring Generation with host Pamela D Wilson is here to focus on the conversation of caring. You're not alone. In fact, you're in exactly the right place to share stories and learn tips and resources to help you and your loved ones. So now, please welcome the host of The Caring Generation, Pamela D Wilson.
I'm Pamela D Wilson, caregiving expert, speaker, consultant, and guardian of the Caring Generation. Thank you for joining me for this week's show, episode 213. Before we jump into this week's topic, dementia and human rights, what rights does a person with dementia have? If you find this podcast helpful, please like it and follow it on your favorite podcast app. Your participation through likes and follows helps the show reach more people worldwide, looking for hope, help, and support for their health, or when caring for aging or elderly parents, spouses, other family members, or themselves. Aging, whether one has a diagnosis of dementia or not, can feel if choices become more and more limited. Unlike being young with years of life ahead. Once a person reaches middle age or old age, there can be health concerns to deal with that negatively impact daily life. Experiencing memory loss can be frightening. Receiving a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's can be life-changing. Awareness, thoughts, and beliefs about aging and human rights, and dementia and human rights becomes more relevant as we age. In my professional career, I was a guardian, power of attorney, and care manager for persons progressing through all stages of dementia. This includes persons diagnosed very early, who were practical about the diagnosis and made a plan. There were others not diagnosed until memory loss had progressed beyond their ability to understand what happened, and others who were diagnosed with dementia but refused to talk about it. Dementia is an irreversible condition that benefits from early planning so that persons with dementia can maintain their human rights, dignity, and personhood. The challenge is understanding why maintaining human rights, dignity, and personhood is important for persons with dementia if you really haven't been through the experience before. So stay with me during this podcast while I share definitions used by the medical and legal community that you might not be aware of. I'll also share examples of how dementia and human rights plays out in daily life situations, whether you are the person with dementia, the person caring for someone with dementia, a family member, or a friend. Let's begin with the word autonomy. Autonomy is the feeling of being in control of your life and being able to act according to your beliefs. We all want autonomy. We don't want anyone controlling our daily lives. And in the bigger picture of life, there are degrees of autonomy. Generally, most of us follow the rules set by the government, like filing income taxes, stopping our car at a red light, and driving on the right or left side of the road, depending on the country where we live. We do these things without much thought because everyone does them. So we may not see participating in these activities or rules as losing autonomy or being controlled by others. Another phrase you might hear in social care, medical care, or legal circles is self-determination. Self-determination relates to a person's ability to make choices about life. Autonomy and self-determination go hand in hand. When choices exist, people feel more in control. You go to the grocery store. You're in the cereal aisle. Just 20 different boxes. You have a choice. You go over to the dairy section and you see yogurt. 10 flavors instead of 2. That makes you feel better. Now, let's add some complications to autonomy and self-determination by adding people, relationships, and outside influences. Aging with dementia has consequences that are difficult to predict until one is in a particular situation. Caregivers may see the effects of age on themselves, their parents, or their grandparents, who seem to be slowing down, having more frequent health problems, and definitely getting more forgetful. The idea of aging and human rights and dementia and human rights becomes more important when dealing with the healthcare system. Doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, nursing homes, home healthcare agencies, or medical treatment. Because as memory loss progresses, persons with dementia find it more difficult to deal with details and decision-making and scheduling doctor appointments and managing daily aspects of life. For most people, figuring out the differences between copays and out-of-pocket expenses and how these add up to annual deductibles can be confusing. Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans have guidelines that can be confusing. Medicaid, even more so. A health diagnosis, especially dementia or Alzheimer's, can significantly affect choices, human rights, patient rights, medical care, and daily life. Now, you might wonder how. Let me share a couple of examples related to persons with dementia who eventually lose their ability to make complicated decisions, even though they may know exactly what they want and what they don't want. Example number 1, a spouse or an adult child who is a power of attorney agent or a guardian or a conservator takes over decision-making for a person with dementia. Now, while a power of attorney agent or a guardian or a conservator is supposed to follow the instructions given to them previously by the person with dementia or use substituted judgment, this isn't always what happens. Substituted judgment means making choices for someone else based on what that person would have wanted. So, substituted judgment can mean using a person's past behaviors or patterns of behavior to determine actions. It can mean talking to family or friends to get an idea of the choices a person would have made. The challenge with substituted judgment happens when family emotions and family relationships that aren't always positive get mixed up and involved. Let's say you're a person with dementia. Your children never got along, although you had fairly good relationships with them. One of your children is angry or jealous of the child you appointed as power of attorney or guardian because the other child feels the child you appointed was just your favorite. You favored this child over all the other children. So, the angry child starts a legal action, which really has nothing to do with you, the person with dementia, but it's positioned as being good for you. This child wants control of your money and your daily care, which is not what you wanted. If it was, you would have legally appointed this child. You did not. The result, though, is that the child you appointed power of attorney or guardian now has to defend themselves legally. And hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees later, paid from your estate, the court may grant one way or another. That legal decision and action impacts your care and your daily life. But because your dementia has progressed, you may not realize even what's happened, and there's probably nothing you can do about it. The outcome of that legal action was put in the hands of the skills of the attorney who represented your child who was appointed as power of attorney or guardian against the other child. In my experience, no parent ever imagines that something like this will happen, but it does. which is why paying attention to dementia and human rights and self-determination and autonomy is important. If you have memory loss and want to make sure your loved ones follow through with what you want, it's important to put your wishes in writing. Also consider the unexpected situations that might happen between your children or other family members and plan for these. Let's look at example number 2. Let's say you are a very detail-oriented person. You had a great job, a career, you managed your money, you lived independently, but you start having memory problems. You live alone, you don't have any kids. You were aware of the diagnosis, but you weren't sure what to do or how to plan. Your doctor really didn't talk to you about dementia and what happens. The time when anyone is first diagnosed is the best time to put protections in place for yourself so that dementia doesn't result in you losing your human rights and choices. So in this situation, let's say you didn't know. You didn't make an estate plan. You did not appoint a medical or financial power of attorney. Did not do a living will, a will or a trust. Your memory loss advances. Now what? Well, in a perfect world, someone you trust in your family finds out you have memory loss, and they agree to care for you. They go to court to get guardianship and conservatorship, and everything works out perfectly. Example number 3. If you have dementia, the healthcare system and care providers can gain control over your life, which can reduce or eliminate your autonomy and self-determination. There are definitely gaps between what providers do and what people say is the right thing to do for people with dementia. This takes us to the words person-centered care or personalized care that really are used worldwide, no matter where you live. Person-centered care has different meanings. Person-centered care, in the truest of definition, means that the information you provided when your memory loss was less advanced is considered relative to your wishes and your daily activities. Maybe you like to sit outside in the warm weather, or you liked listening to music. Maybe you like some people in your family and not others. So some people are allowed to visit while others are not. Person-centered care means that your preferences and your wishes are incorporated into your day-to-day activities by the staff at the care community where you live, your family members, or the caregivers who come into your home to care for you. Example number 4. Let's say your children rarely call or visit, but they definitely enjoy the money you send them every year, and they're counting on their inheritance when you die. You have your life and your friends. Your friends become your caregivers. So you change your legal documents to make 2 long-term friends your agent under power of attorney and your trustees. You tell your children you made this change, and they explode. Your children are upset that you chose someone other than them to help you, even though they haven't been involved in your life, they've rarely come to visit, they rarely call. So what happens? Your children file a lawsuit to remove the legal authority you gave to your friends. Your decisions, because you have dementia, are questioned. Does mom or dad really know what they're doing? This doesn't make sense. Why would they do this? They must have been influenced. So as a person with dementia, you are fighting for your human rights, your autonomy, and your self-determination to make the choices that you want, because you know what you want. Now, depending on the laws in your state, persons with dementia may have more or fewer rights. In some states, probate judges readily deny a person with dementia their human rights, autonomy, or self-determination. Judges and court systems and attorneys have a lot of power to determine who controls a person's life when one has dementia. Depending on where you live, fighting for your human rights, and your choices can be a battle. Persons with dementia who can still express their wishes find themselves in these contested court situations and cannot even imagine how these situations happened. Well, I can tell you based on my experience as an expert witness, they happen every day because persons with early dementia, or their family members, or their caregivers, or their friends, lack an understanding of how dementia progresses and what can happen, and especially what can happen when the legal court system gets involved. The self-interest of people, friends, family members, others, who believe that they're doing the right thing can cause all kinds of problems for persons with dementia if there were no precautionary steps early in the diagnosis to protect the rights of the person with dementia. People with dementia are often seen as the disease, not as the person they were during their lifetime, a capable person, a leader. They're not seen as their preferences or their life habits or their wishes. And so what happens is their preferences and wishes are deprioritized and undervalued because, oh my gosh, they have dementia. Of course they don't know what they want anymore. Of course they don't know what they're doing. Of course someone else should be given the right to make those decisions. So what happens is persons with dementia lose their rights to make choices because doctors, adult children, staff at care communities, other people feel they know better. Family relationships, life circumstances, and environments greatly affect people with dementia, to the positive and to the negative. Imagine how powerless it might feel for a person with dementia to lose total control over their life and their choices. When in your life have you felt powerless? If you have, then you might understand how it feels to age and lose control over your life decisions, whether or not you have dementia. Becoming sick and vulnerable and relying on others for care can be a very out-of-control feeling. Caregivers often become frustrated with their aging parents who refuse care or who make other choices. But until you are that person who has lost control over your life or need care from another person or have memory loss or are vulnerable, it's very hard to understand what that feels like. We can only hope that we have good family members who care for us and love us and will follow our wishes. My recommendation for everyone, regardless of whether you have a dementia diagnosis or not, plan ahead. Don't assume your family will care for you. Take into account your relationships with your children and the relationships between your children and between your stepchildren if you're a step family. Put your wishes and wants in writing. Get your legal documents in order. Notarize them in front of witnesses. Record videos if you have to. Have plans to avoid anyone in your family taking away your human rights, autonomy, and self-determination regardless of your health concerns. I thank you all for being here. Please like and follow this podcast on your favorite app. Share it with others you know who are seeking hope, help, and support. The show transcript along with this podcast and a video are on my website at PamelaDWilson.com. Go to the media tab and then the Caring Generation. Scroll down and look for episode 213. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker on the Caring Generation. I look forward to being with you again soon. God bless you all. Sleep well tonight, have a fabulous day tomorrow, and enjoy each day until we are here together again.
Tune in each week for the Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson. Come join the conversation and see how Pamela can provide solutions and peace of mind for everyone. Here on Pamela D. Wilson's The Caring Generation.